Years ago when I first started building ponds, I couldn't find a great deal of information on how to do it. So I just started experimenting and learning as much as I could. There's lots of ways to build a pond, but the method that resonated with me was low maintenance and natural looking. I now have many of these ponds throughout my property. Each one has clean, clear, healthy water, and they're very easy to maintain. In fact, I barely do anything to them. And so in this video, I'd like to share how I design the ponds so that they have clean, clear, healthy water, and how you can do it too, so it's not crazy expensive. If you don't know me, my name is Kev, and the aim of my channel is to help people build and maintain a pond without spending a fortune. If that sounds like something that interests you, you might like to subscribe and check out my website, ozponds.com. These natural looking ponds are built using a pond liner. I always use EPDM rubber liner. It's stretchy, tough, and it's easy to work with. Depending on the size of the pond and the condition of the ground, I also often use a non-woven geotextile underlayment to protect the liner. When building these types of ponds, the liner is my most expensive component, so this is where I don't want to cut corners. It's on the filtration system where we can potentially save thousands of dollars. But if you are looking for the liner I'm talking about, you can check out my website. I have links to various suppliers all over the world. To naturalize the liner and help create the perfect aquatic ecosystem, we use rock and pebble to hide the liner. This is also going to provide us with pockets and a substrate to add aquatic plants to further enhance the ecosystem. When the pond's being dug, we use shelves to make stacking rock and adding pebble much easier. And that's the basic idea of the pond itself. Rock and pebble to hide and protect the liner, making it look natural along with plants. And if you can find the right balance of plants, bacteria, fish, and multiple other critters that create a well-rounded ecosystem, you could stop there. But it's often not easy to create that perfect balance, and it can be a bit of hit and miss. And if you get it wrong, you just have a stagnant, green, possibly smelly mess on your hands. It's much more predictable if you can create a filter system that is sized appropriately for the pond. And you can design it so that it blends into the landscape, and that's my preference. It'll also give you water movement, which is nicer in my opinion. Who doesn't want to sit by a little stream or a waterfall? So after years of experimenting, the system that I like the best is to create a bog filter and an intake bay. A bog filter filters water like a wetland does in nature. The water moves through a substrate like rock and pebble, and plants are planted into the substrate. As the water moves through the substrate and around the plant roots, the water's filtered. Once the water's filtered, it can cascade back into the pond via a stream or a waterfall, so your filter looks like a garden with aquatic plants, or even a smaller pond separate to the main pond. Again, there's lots of ways that this can be configured, but this is the most common method that I use. We can create the bog filter out of pond liner or watertight containers. What I use is determined by the size of the pond and what I think is going to work best. I recently created a video on different bog filter designs, so you might want to check that out after this video, and I'll leave a link in the description. To circulate the water to the bog filter and create the streams and waterfalls, we need a pump. Submersible pumps these days are very energy efficient, and I've got links over on my website if you don't know where to start. The pump or pumps we will position in an intake bay, and this is another type of DIY friendly filter. The idea of the intake bay is that it'll skim the surface of the pond of debris. It'll also pre-filter the water entering the pump, so you don't need to be cleaning it all the time, like you would if it was on the bottom of the pond. It'll also draw in water off the surface of the pond, which is rich in oxygen. This will help optimize the function of the bog filter, and it'll also prevent any baby fish, tadpoles, etc. from being sucked into the pump. It's a very underrated filter. We will construct this as part of the pond, and it's going to pump water up to the bog filter. Because every pond is different sizes, depths, and uses, the bog filter, intake bay, and pump sizes are all going to vary. You also might want more flow in your stream or waterfall. You might want to add some circulation jets to help optimize the flow of water throughout the pond, or you might like to add an aerator to help oxygenate and stabilize the pond's temperature. For this reason, I created a downloadable formulas cheat sheet or blueprint, and this is what I use when I'm designing my ponds and ordering the materials that I will need. This came about after years of experimentation. So here's how I use it. First, I determined the estimated volume of the pond. And don't worry, the cheat sheet explains how to calculate all these numbers I'm about to mention. The volume is important because the amount of water we need to filter. I also need to decide on what type of animals I'm keeping in the pond. Certain animals are messier than others, and therefore I need to size my filters correctly. So once I know the volume of the pond and the type of animals I'm keeping, I can size my bog filter. And now that I know the size of my bog filter, I can size my pump or pumps. The size of the pump is correlated with the size of the bog filter. And before I size my intake bay, which is related to the size of the pumps, I just want to check that the amount of flow I have will create the effect I want in my streams and waterfalls. Again, the cheat sheet has all these numbers, like how wide can I make my streams and waterfalls with the flow available from my pump or pumps. It also has calculations for water in motion to make sure that the pond can handle the water inside the streams and filters if the pumps are shut off. If I want more flow in the streams and waterfalls, I can add a second pump in the intake bay. This is why I want to check all this before I decide on the final size of the intake bay. Remember, the intake bay is where the pumps are located. You might also decide a negative edge and a storage reservoir will suit your needs better, and those are also part of the cheat sheet, but I prefer intake bays. During this design stage, I also want to decide if I need to add some aeration or circulation jets. I like to add aeration to most of my ponds. Well-oxygenated water will only improve the biological processes going on inside the pond, and that translates to less maintenance. And circulation jets are useful if you want to try and keep the pond really clean, or the pond has a weird shape and you need to help push floating debris out of coves and such. You'll need to decide the position of the jets, but the cheat sheet has the numbers I've found useful to allow for each jet. And again, I find it easiest to add a dedicated pump to run the circulation jets. So once you know the overall capacity of the pumps, now you can size your intake bay. And that's pretty much my process. Once I know the size of the pond, the size of the bog filter, the size of the intake bay, and the size of the pumps, and how many I need, I can also work out how much liner and underlayment I'll need, and estimate the amount of rock and pebble I'll need, and that's all part of the cheat sheet as well. The cool thing about mapping it all out is that I can start pricing up all the materials, and this is going to let me know if this is a pond that's within my budget, or if I'm way off and I need to make it smaller or start saving up some more money. You also get to play around with design elements, and it's quite a creative process. And having something sketched out helps you visualize what you hope to accomplish. And best of all, when I've sized everything this way, I've achieved very good water quality and clarity every time. I should also mention that the cheat sheet can be used to build formal looking ponds if that's what you prefer. The aim is that it gives you the basics of everything you need to design and build a cheap, effective filtration system that works. But like I said, the cheat sheet's available on ozponds.com, along with plenty of other helpful resources if you're interested. And if you want to see how I actually dig and put all the components together on a pond like this, you can easily see how all my ponds were built by scrolling through my previous videos, or heck, you might as well just binge watch them all. But seriously, I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching. See ya.